Maya Rodriguez stepped out of her uncle's black pickup truck and stared at Jefferson High School. The building looked massive compared to her old school in Los Angeles. Red brick walls stretched up 3 stories high with dozens of windows reflecting the morning sun. Students were walking in groups, laughing and talking loudly. She could hear music coming from someone's phone and the sound of skateboards rolling across the concrete. "You sure you don't want me to walk you in?" asked Uncle Tony from the driver's seat. His thick arms rested on the steering wheel, and his bald head gleamed under the sun. He looked just like her famous cousin, but with more scars and tattoos covering his arms. "No thanks, Uncle Tony. I got this," Maya said, adjusting her black backpack. She had learned long ago to handle things on her own. Moving from city to city with her military father had taught her to be tough and independent. Uncle Tony smiled, showing a gold tooth. "That's my girl. Remember what I taught you about bullies? Stand your ground. Use your brain first, fists second," Maya replied, repeating the lesson he had drilled into her head all summer. "Good. And if anyone gives you real trouble, you call me. I don't care if I'm at the garage or sleeping. You understand?" Maya nodded and shut the truck door. Uncle Tony drove away, leaving her standing alone in front of the school. She took a deep breath and walked toward the main entrance. Her black combat boots made soft, thumping sounds on the pavement. The hallways inside were crowded and noisy. Students rushed past her carrying books and talking on their phones. Maya checked her schedule and looked for room 204. She was already 10 minutes late because Uncle Tony had gotten lost trying to find the school. "Excuse me," she said to a girl with bright pink hair. "Do you know where room 204 is?" The girl looked Maya up and down, taking in her faded jeans, black t-shirt, and leather jacket. "Second floor, turn left," she said quickly and walked away. Maya climbed the stairs 2 at a time. She found room 204 and knocked on the door before entering. The teacher, a tall woman with gray hair, stopped talking and looked at her. "You must be Maya Rodriguez," the teacher said. "I'm Mrs. Patterson. Please take the empty seat in the back." 25 pairs of eyes followed Maya as she walked to the back of the classroom. She could hear whispers and giggles. Someone said something about her hair being too short. Another person made a comment about her boots looking like army gear. Maya sat down and pulled out a notebook. The boy sitting next to her leaned over and whispered, "Nice jacket. You think you're tough or something?" She turned to look at him. He had blonde hair that covered one eye and was wearing an expensive-looking polo shirt. 3 other boys around him were smirking and waiting for her response. "Just trying to stay warm," Maya said quietly and turned back to face the front. "I'm Derek," the boy said louder now. "That's Jake, Marcus, and Tyler. We run things around here. You should know that." Maya didn't respond. She had dealt with guys like Derek before. They were usually all talk and no action. The best thing to do was ignore them and hope they got bored. But Derek wasn't finished. During lunch, Maya was sitting alone at a table in the corner of the cafeteria, eating a sandwich Uncle Tony had made for her. She was reading a book about car engines when Derek and his friends surrounded her table. "Look what we have here," Derek said loudly. "The new girl thinks she's too good to sit with people." Several other students turned to watch. Maya could feel their eyes on her, waiting to see what would happen. She closed her book and looked up at Derek. "I'm just eating lunch," she said calmly. "Is that a problem?" "Yeah, it is a problem," said Jake, the tallest of the group. He had red hair and freckles, and his arms looked like he played football. "See, we like to know who's who around here. And you haven't introduced yourself properly." Maya stood up slowly. She was shorter than all 4 boys, but Uncle Tony had taught her that size wasn't everything. "I'm Maya. I'm new. I don't want any trouble." "Trouble?" Derek laughed. "Who said anything about trouble? We just want to be friends. Right, guys?" The other boys nodded and moved closer to Maya's table. She noticed that other students were watching, but nobody was coming to help her. Some kids had their phones out, probably hoping to record a fight. Look, Maya said, keeping her voice steady. I just want to eat my lunch and go to class. I'm not looking for friends or enemies, I just want to be left alone. Marcus, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. That's not how it works here, new girl. You don't get to just ignore us. We're trying to be nice. This is you being nice? Maya asked, looking around at the 4 boys surrounding her table. Derek's face turned red. You got attitude problems, you know that? Maybe we need to teach you some manners. Maya felt her heart start to beat faster. She had been in situations like this before, but never with 4 guys at once. Uncle Tony's words echoed in her head. Use your brain first, fists second. I think you should step back, she said quietly. All of you. Or what? Derek asked, stepping even closer. What are you gonna do? Call your mommy? That hit a nerve. Maya's mother had died in a car accident 3 years ago, which was why she was living with Uncle Tony now. Her father was deployed overseas and couldn't take care of her. Just leave me alone, Maya said, but her voice had an edge to it now. Derek must have sensed that he had struck a nerve because he smiled. Oh, did I hit a sore spot? Poor little new girl misses her mommy? The cafeteria had gotten quieter. More students were watching now, and Maya could feel the pressure building. She knew that whatever happened next would define how the rest of her time at this school would go. Last warning, Maya said, standing up straighter. Back off. Derek laughed and reached out to push Maya's shoulder. What are you gonna do about it, tough girl? That was his first mistake. Uncle Tony had taught Maya that once someone put their hands on you, all bets were off. She grabbed Derek's wrist and twisted it sharply, using a move her uncle had shown her. Derek yelped in pain and stumbled backward. What the hell? Jake shouted and lunged toward Maya. Maya ducked under his reaching arms and swept his legs, sending him crashing into an empty chair. The sound of Jake hitting the floor echoed through the cafeteria, and suddenly everyone was on their feet, trying to get a better view. Marcus and Tyler looked at each other, unsure of what to do. Derek was holding his wrist and glaring at Maya with pure hate in his eyes. You're gonna pay for that, Derek said through gritted teeth. I warned you to back off, Maya replied. Her heart was pounding, but her voice was steady. I don't want to fight you guys, but I will if I have to. Jake was getting back to his feet, rubbing his shoulder. You think you're tough because you got lucky? There's 4 of us and 1 of you. Maya looked around at the circle of students watching them. Nobody was moving to help her, but nobody was helping Derek's group either. She realized that this was some kind of test. If she backed down now, these guys would make her life miserable for the rest of the school year. Doesn't matter how many of you there are, Maya said. I'm not afraid. Derek pulled out his phone. We'll see how tough you are after school. Meet us behind the gym at 3:30. If you don't show up, we'll make sure everyone knows you're a coward. Fine, Maya said without hesitation. I'll be there. Derek and his friends walked away, pushing through the crowd of students. Maya sat back down and tried to eat her sandwich, but her hands were shaking slightly. She had just agreed to fight 4 guys after school. Uncle Tony was going to kill her. The rest of the day passed in a blur. In her afternoon classes, Maya could feel people staring at her and whispering. Word had spread quickly about the cafeteria incident. Some students looked at her with respect. Others seemed scared, and a few looked like they thought she was crazy. During her last class of the day, a girl with curly brown hair sat down next to her. I'm Sarah, the girl whispered. I heard what happened at lunch. Maya nodded but didn't say anything. Derek and those guys are jerks, Sarah continued. But they're also dangerous. Derek's dad is some big shot lawyer, and Jake plays varsity football. They've gotten away with bullying kids for years. Why are you telling me this? Maya asked quietly. Because you're the first person who's ever stood up to them. But you need to know what you're getting into. They're not just gonna fight fair. Maya appreciated the warning, but it didn't change anything. She had already committed to meeting them behind the gym, and backing out now would make things worse. After school, Maya walked slowly toward the gym. Her backpack felt heavy on her shoulders, and she could feel butterflies in her stomach. She had been in fights before, but never against 4 people at once. Behind the gym was a small area surrounded by trees and a chain-link fence. It was hidden from the main part of the school, which explained why Derek had chosen it. About 20 students were already there, forming a loose circle. Maya could see Derek and his friends waiting in the middle. "Look who decided to show up," Derek called out as Maya approached. "I thought for sure you'd chicken out." Maya dropped her backpack at the edge of the circle and stepped forward. "I said I'd be here." Jake cracked his knuckles. "This is gonna be fun." "Before we start," Maya said loudly, making sure everyone could hear her, "I want everyone to know that I tried to avoid this. I asked these guys to leave me alone multiple times." Derek scoffed. "Nobody cares about your excuses. You embarrassed us in front of the whole school. Now it's payback time." Maya took a deep breath and dropped into a fighting stance that Uncle Tony had taught her. Feet shoulder-width apart, knees slightly bent, hands up to protect her face. She had practiced this stance hundreds of times in Uncle Tony's garage. The 4 boys spread out around her, trying to surround her from all sides. Maya turned slowly, keeping her eyes moving between all of them. Uncle Tony had told her that in a fight against multiple opponents, the key was to never let them all attack at once. "Come on, guys," Derek said. "Let's teach this wannabe tough girl a lesson." Marcus was the first to move. He charged straight at Maya, probably expecting to tackle her to the ground. Maya waited until he was almost on top of her, then sidestepped and used his momentum against him. She grabbed his shirt and helped him continue his forward motion, sending him crashing into the fence behind her. Tyler came next, swinging a wild punch at Maya's head. She ducked under it and came up with an uppercut that caught Tyler in the stomach. He doubled over, gasping for air. Jake and Derek looked at each other, realizing that this wasn't going as planned. Maya had just taken down 2 of their friends without breaking a sweat. "What are you guys waiting for?" Derek shouted. "Get her!" Jake rushed forward, using his size advantage to try to grab Maya in a bear hug. Maya let him get close, then dropped to one knee and drove her shoulder into his stomach. Jake's forward momentum carried him right over Maya's back, and he landed hard on the ground behind her. Now it was just Maya and Derek. The crowd of students was completely silent, staring in amazement at what they had just witnessed. Derek's 3 friends were all on the ground, groaning and trying to catch their breath. Derek's face was bright red with anger and embarrassment. "You got lucky," he said, but his voice was shaking. "That was just luck." Maya didn't respond. She kept her hands up and her eyes on Derek, waiting to see what he would do next. Derek reached into his pocket and pulled out something that made several students in the crowd gasp. It was a small knife, maybe 3 inches long, but it gleamed in the afternoon sun. "Now we'll see how tough you really are," Derek said, holding the knife in front of him. The crowd started backing away. This had gone from a schoolyard fight to something much more serious. Maya felt her blood run cold. Uncle Tony had taught her how to fight with her hands, but he had never prepared her for someone with a weapon. "Derek, put that away!" someone in the crowd shouted. "This is crazy!" "Shut up!" Derek screamed back. "She humiliated me! She's gonna pay!" Maya's mind raced. She could run, but Derek would probably catch her. She could try to fight him, but the knife gave him a huge advantage. She thought about Uncle Tony and what he would do in this situation. Suddenly, she remembered something he had told her about her family, about her famous cousin and the blood that ran in their veins, about never backing down when someone threatened you or the people you cared about. Maya straightened up and looked Derek directly in the eyes. "You really want to do this?" she asked quietly. Something in her voice made Derek hesitate. There was a calmness there that hadn't been present before, and it was more frightening than any scream or threat. "You have no idea who you're messing with," Maya continued, her voice getting stronger. "My family doesn't take kindly to people who pull knives on us. Derek laughed nervously. Your family? What's your daddy gonna do? Write me a letter from wherever he's stationed? Maya smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. Not my dad, my cousin. You ever hear of Dominic Toretto? A few students in the crowd gasped. Everyone knew that name. Everyone had seen the movies and heard the stories about the famous street racer and action star. Derek's hand started shaking slightly. You're lying! Vin Diesel isn't your cousin. His real name is Mark Sinclair, Maya said calmly. And my Uncle Tony over there in the parking lot? He's been waiting for me to call him if I needed help. Should I give him a ring? Derek looked toward the parking lot and saw Uncle Tony's black pickup truck. Tony was leaning against the hood, watching the whole scene. Even from a distance, the family resemblance was obvious. The knife in Derek's hand was shaking now. This doesn't change anything. You still embarrassed me. And you pulled a knife on an unarmed girl, Maya replied. How do you think that's gonna look when the police get here? Because they're definitely getting called if you don't put that thing away right now. Derek looked around at the crowd of students. Several of them had their phones out and were recording everything. He realized that his life could be ruined in the next few minutes, depending on what he did. Slowly, Derek folded the knife and put it back in his pocket. This isn't over, he said quietly. Yes, it is, Maya replied firmly. It's over right now. You and your friends are going to leave me alone, and I'm going to pretend this never happened. That's the deal. Derek looked at his three friends, who were finally getting back to their feet. They all looked beaten and embarrassed. He realized that he had no choice but to accept Maya's offer. Fine, Derek said through gritted teeth, but stay away from us. That was always the plan, Maya said. Derek and his friends walked away, pushing through the crowd of students. The excitement was over, and people started to disperse. Maya picked up her backpack and walked toward the parking lot where Uncle Tony was waiting. How'd it go? Tony asked as Maya approached the truck. About as well as could be expected, Maya replied, getting into the passenger seat. Tony started the engine and pulled out of the parking lot. You handle yourself okay? Maya nodded. Used everything you taught me, plus a little bit of the family reputation. Tony laughed. Sometimes a name carries more weight than fists. Your cousin would be proud. As they drove home, Maya looked back at the school. Tomorrow would be different. Derek and his friends would probably avoid her, and the other students would know better than to mess with her. She had established herself as someone who wouldn't be pushed around. But she also knew that this was just the beginning. High school was full of challenges, and she had just made it clear that she wasn't going to back down from any of them. Uncle Tony had taught her to be strong, and her family's reputation would help protect her. Maya smiled as they drove through the streets of her new hometown. She was ready for whatever came next. 3 weeks had passed since the incident behind the gym, and Maya's life at Jefferson High had changed completely. Students no longer stared at her with confusion or fear. Instead, they gave her respectful nods in the hallways and made space for her at lunch tables. Derek and his crew kept their distance, just as promised. Maya was sitting in the school library during her free period, working on a history assignment about World War II. She enjoyed the quiet atmosphere and the fact that most students avoided the library like it was infected with some terrible disease. The librarian, Mrs. Chen, had become friendly with Maya after discovering she was one of the few students who actually read books for pleasure. Maya Rodriguez, please report to the principal's office immediately, came the announcement over the intercom. Maya looked up from her textbook, confused. She had been staying out of trouble, attending all her classes, and keeping her grades up. Uncle Tony had made it clear that good grades were not optional in their family. She packed her books and walked to the main office, wondering what this could be about. The secretary, a middle-aged woman with thick glasses, pointed toward Principal Morrison's door. Go right in, dear. He's waiting for you. Maya knocked and entered the office. Principal Morrison was a tall, thin man with gray hair and kind eyes. He was sitting behind his desk with a folder open in front of him. "Please, sit down, Maya," he said, gesturing to one of the chairs across from his desk. "I wanted to talk to you about something that happened yesterday after school." Maya's heart sank. Had someone reported the fight from weeks ago? Had Derek finally decided to cause trouble for her? "Am I in trouble, sir?" Maya asked carefully. Principal Morrison smiled. "Not at all. In fact, it's quite the opposite. I received a very interesting phone call from Mrs. Patterson, who works at the elementary school down the street. She wanted to thank our school for sending such a helpful student to assist her." Maya relaxed slightly. "I'm sorry, sir, but I think there's been some confusion. I haven't been to the elementary school." "Really?" Principal Morrison looked at the folder again. "Because Mrs. Patterson described a young woman matching your description perfectly. Short, dark hair, combat boots, leather jacket. She said this student helped break up a fight between some older kids who were picking on a first grader." Maya remembered yesterday afternoon clearly. She had been walking home from school when she heard crying coming from the playground at Roosevelt Elementary. 3 boys who looked like they were in 5th or 6th grade were surrounding a much smaller kid, probably 6 or 7 years old. They were calling him names and pushing him around. Maya had watched for about 30 seconds, hoping an adult would come along to handle the situation. But the playground was empty except for the 4 children, and the little boy was starting to cry harder. Uncle Tony's voice had echoed in her head. "Family protects family, but real strength means protecting anyone who can't protect themselves." So Maya had walked over to the playground. "Hey!" she had called out to the 3 older boys. "What's going on here?" The boys had turned to look at her. The tallest one, probably 11 years old, had puffed out his chest. "None of your business, high school girl. Keep walking." "Actually, it is my business," Maya had replied, stepping closer. "See, I don't like bullies, and you 3 look like bullies to me." The second boy had laughed. "What are you going to do? Tell our teacher? School's over, lady." Maya had looked down at the little boy, who was wiping tears from his face with his sleeve. His backpack was on the ground, and his papers were scattered everywhere. "What's your name?" Maya had asked the little boy gently. "Tommy," he had whispered. "Hi, Tommy, I'm Maya. Are these guys bothering you?" Tommy had nodded and pointed to his scattered homework. "They threw my math worksheets in the dirt and called me stupid." Maya had felt anger building in her chest. These kids reminded her of Derek and his friends, just younger and smaller. But picking on a first grader was even worse than picking on a new student. "Here's what's going to happen," Maya had said to the 3 bullies. "You're going to help Tommy pick up his papers, then you're going to apologize to him, and then you're going to leave him alone forever." The tallest boy had crossed his arms. "And if we don't?" Maya had smiled the same cold smile she had given Derek when he pulled the knife. "Then I'm going to call my uncle, and he's going to have a conversation with your parents. Trust me, you don't want that." The boys had looked at each other uncertainly. Maya was bigger than them, older than them, and something in her voice suggested she wasn't bluffing. "Fine," the tallest boy had muttered. "Whatever." The 3 boys had helped Tommy gather his papers while Maya watched. When everything was picked up and put back in Tommy's backpack, she had made them apologize properly. "Sorry, Tommy," each boy had said, though they clearly didn't mean it. "Good," Maya had said. "Now remember what I told you about leaving him alone?" The boys had walked away, grumbling among themselves, but not causing any more trouble. Maya had knelt down to Tommy's level. "You okay?" she had asked. Tommy had nodded. "Thank you for helping me. Those boys are mean to me every day." "Well, they won't be any more," Maya had promised. "But if they give you trouble again, you tell your teacher right away. And if that doesn't work, you ask your teacher to call Jefferson High School and ask for Maya Rodriguez. Can you remember that name? Maya Rodriguez, Tommy had repeated carefully. That's right. I live near here, so I'll be around. Bullies don't like it when people stand up to them. Maya had walked Tommy to the edge of the playground where his mother was waiting in a car. She had explained briefly what had happened, and Tommy's mom had been very grateful. Now sitting in Principal Morrison's office, Maya realized that someone must have seen the whole thing and reported it to the elementary school. Mrs. Patterson was very impressed, Principal Morrison continued. She said you handled the situation perfectly. You didn't use violence, you protected a vulnerable child, and you made sure the problem was resolved peacefully. Maya shifted in her chair. It wasn't a big deal, sir. Those older kids were picking on someone half their size. It wasn't right. That's exactly why I wanted to talk to you, Principal Morrison said, leaning forward. Maya, I've been doing this job for 15 years, and I've seen a lot of students. Most teenagers would have walked past that situation and minded their own business. The fact that you stopped to help shows real character. Maya didn't know what to say. She wasn't used to being praised for doing what seemed like the obvious thing. I also heard about an incident that happened here a few weeks ago, Principal Morrison added. Something about you standing up to some older students who were giving you trouble. Maya tensed up. Sir, I didn't start that fight. They cornered me and wouldn't let me leave. I just defended myself. Relax, Principal Morrison said with a smile. You're not in trouble. But I'm curious about something. Where did you learn to handle yourself like that? Maya thought about Uncle Tony and all the lessons he had taught her. My uncle owns a garage in town. He taught me that sometimes you have to stand up for yourself, but you should always try to solve things peacefully first. Wise advice. What's your uncle's name? I might know him. Tony Rodriguez. He runs Rodriguez Auto Repair on 5th Street. Principal Morrison's eyes widened slightly. Tony Rodriguez? The big guy with the shaved head and the muscle car? That's him. I had my car worked on there last year. Good man. Very honest. Principal Morrison paused. Maya, I have a proposition for you. We have a problem here at Jefferson High with bullying. It's gotten worse over the past couple of years, and traditional disciplinary methods aren't working as well as they used to. Maya wasn't sure where this was going. Okay, I'd like you to consider becoming a peer counselor. It's a voluntary program where students help other students deal with problems like bullying, peer pressure, and social conflicts. You'd receive some basic training, and you'd work with our school counselor, Mr. Patterson. You want me to be like a hall monitor? Maya asked, confused. Principal Morrison laughed. Not exactly. More like someone other students can talk to when they're having problems, someone they can trust to understand what they're going through. Maya thought about it. Why me? I've only been here for 3 weeks. Because in those 3 weeks, you've shown more backbone and integrity than most students show in 4 years. You defended yourself when you had to, but you also protected someone smaller and weaker than you. That tells me you understand the difference between using strength and abusing it. Maya was quiet for a moment, considering the offer. What would I have to do? Meet with Mr. Patterson once a week for training. Spend some time during lunch periods in the counseling office, available to talk to students who need help. And occasionally, if a situation arises that requires a student perspective, you might be asked to get involved. Get involved how? For example, if we have a bullying situation that's not serious enough for suspension but too serious to ignore, you might be asked to talk to the students involved. Sometimes kids will listen to another student when they won't listen to adults. Maya thought about Derek and his friends. They had listened to her when she mentioned her family connections. Maybe she could help other students who were dealing with similar problems. Can I think about it? Maya asked. Of course. Take all the time you need. But Maya? Principal Morrison smiled. I think you'd be really good at this. Maya left the principal's office with a lot to think about. She had come to Jefferson High just wanting to keep her head down and avoid trouble. but somehow she had become someone that people looked to for help. During lunch, she sat with Sarah, who had become her first real friend at the school. Sarah was smart, funny, and one of the few students who wasn't intimidated by Maya's reputation. "So what did Morrison want?" Sarah asked, biting into her sandwich. "He offered me a job as a peer counselor," Maya said. "Apparently someone saw me help a kid at the elementary school and reported it." Sarah raised her eyebrows. "Peer counselor? That's actually pretty cool. You'd be good at it." "You think so? Are you kidding? You're like the only person in this school who isn't afraid of Derek and his crew, and you actually care about helping people." Most of the peer counselors they've had in the past were just doing it to pad their college applications. Maya thought about that. She did care about helping people. Uncle Tony had raised her to believe that strength came with responsibility. "There's something else," Sarah said, lowering her voice. "Have you heard about what's happening to the freshman class?" "What do you mean?" "There's a group of seniors who've been targeting the new kids. Not just typical hazing stuff. They're actually making some kids afraid to come to school." Maya felt her jaw clench. "What kind of targeting? Stealing lunch money, hiding backpacks, spreading rumors on social media? There's this one kid, Marcus Thompson, who's been getting it really bad. He's small for his age, and he's kind of awkward socially." "Why hasn't anyone stopped it?" Sarah shrugged. "Same reason nobody stopped Derek until you showed up. The teachers don't see it happening and the other students don't want to get involved." That afternoon, Maya made her decision. She went back to Principal Morrison's office and knocked on his door. "I'll do it," she said simply. Principal Morrison smiled broadly. "Excellent. Can you start training with Mr. Patterson tomorrow?" Maya nodded. "But I have one condition." "What's that?" "I want to know about this Marcus Thompson situation. If I'm going to be a peer counselor, I should probably start with the students who need help most." Principal Morrison's expression became serious. "How did you hear about Marcus?" "Word gets around." "Is it true that some seniors are making his life miserable?" "We've had some reports, but Marcus hasn't been willing to give us specific names or details. He's afraid it will make things worse for him." Maya understood that fear. Sometimes reporting bullies just made them angrier and more creative in their methods. "Let me talk to him," Maya said. "Student to student. Maybe he'll open up more." Principal Morrison considered this. "I'll set up a meeting. But Maya, this is exactly the kind of situation where you'll need to be careful. You can't solve every problem with the direct approach you used with Derek." "I understand," Maya said. "Uncle Tony taught me that every problem needs a different solution." The next day, Maya met with Mr. Patterson, the school counselor. He was a young man, probably in his late 20s, with a friendly manner and an easy smile. "Principal Morrison tells me you're interested in becoming a peer counselor," he said as they sat in his office. "That's great. We really need students who are willing to get involved." Maya looked around the office. It was decorated with motivational posters and had comfortable chairs instead of hard plastic ones like the rest of the school. "What exactly would I be doing?" Maya asked. "Mostly listening," Mr. Patterson said. "You'd be surprised how many students just need someone to talk to who understands what they're going through. Sometimes I can provide advice or resources, but often the most valuable thing is just having another student who cares." Principal Morrison mentioned the Marcus Thompson situation. Mr. Patterson's expression grew concerned. "Yes, that's been troubling. Marcus is a good kid, but he's been having a really hard time adjusting to high school. The bullying has made it even worse." "Can I meet with him?" "I'll ask him if he's willing. But Maya, I need to be clear about something. As a peer counselor, you can't take matters into your own hands the way you did with Derek's group. Everything has to go through proper channels." Maya nodded. "I understand. But what if the proper channels aren't working?" Mr. Patterson smiled slightly. "Then we'll cross that bridge when we come to it." 2 days later, Maya found herself sitting across from Marcus Thompson in Mr. Patterson's office. Marcus was exactly as Sarah had described him, small for his age, with thick glasses and nervous mannerisms. He kept looking at the door like he wanted to run. "Marcus, this is Maya," Mr. Patterson said gently. "She's one of our new peer counselors. She wanted to talk to you because she heard you might be having some problems with other students." Marcus glanced at Maya quickly, then looked at his hands. "I don't want to get anyone in trouble." "You won't," Maya said quietly. "I just want to understand what's been happening." For the next 20 minutes, Marcus slowly told his story. A group of 5 seniors had been targeting him since the first week of school. They called him names, knocked books out of his hands, and had started demanding that he give them money for protection. Yesterday, they had taken his phone and threatened to break it if he didn't bring them $50 by Friday. "$50 is my mom's grocery money," Marcus said, his voice shaking. "She works 2 jobs just to pay rent. I can't ask her for that." Maya felt familiar anger building in her chest. These seniors were worse than Derek's group. At least Derek had been picking on someone his own age. These guys were targeting a scared 14-year-old kid. "Marcus," Maya said carefully, "I know you don't want to get anyone in trouble, but this isn't going to stop on its own. These guys are going to keep taking your money until someone makes them stop. But if I tell on them, they'll just make it worse for me," Marcus said, tears starting to form in his eyes. Maya looked at Mr. Patterson, who nodded slightly. "What if I told you that you wouldn't have to face them alone?" Maya asked. "What if there was a way to make this stop without putting you in more danger?" Marcus looked up at her with hope in his eyes. "How?" Maya smiled. "Leave that to me. But first I need you to tell Mr. Patterson exactly who these guys are and when they usually bother you. Can you do that?" Marcus nodded slowly and began giving Mr. Patterson the details Maya needed to know. By the end of the meeting, Maya had a clear picture of what was happening and who was responsible. That night, Maya sat at the dinner table with Uncle Tony, telling him about her new role as peer counselor and the Marcus situation. "Sounds like you're getting yourself involved in other people's problems," Uncle Tony said, but his tone wasn't disapproving. "Someone has to," Maya replied. "These seniors are targeting a kid who can't defend himself. It's not right." Uncle Tony nodded. "Your cousin Dom always said that family is everything. But family isn't just blood relations. Sometimes family is whoever needs protecting." "So you think I should help Marcus?" "I think you should be careful," Uncle Tony said. "But I also think your heart's in the right place. Just remember what I taught you about picking your battles." "Use my brain first," Maya recited. "That's right. And Maya?" "Yeah? I'm proud of you. You're becoming exactly the kind of person your parents would want you to be." Maya smiled. Tomorrow she would start putting together a plan to help Marcus. But tonight, she felt good knowing that Uncle Tony believed in her. The next morning, Maya arrived at school early and waited by Marcus's locker. When he showed up, she could see that he had been crying. "What happened?" Maya asked immediately. "They cornered me in the bathroom before first period," Marcus said quietly. "They said if I don't have the money by lunch today, they're going to flush my head in the toilet." Maya felt her hands clench into fists, but she forced herself to stay calm. "Marcus, do you trust me?" He looked at her with desperate eyes. "Yes." "Good. Then here's what we're going to do." Maya's plan was simple but effective. She had learned from Uncle Tony that the best way to deal with bullies was to take away their power, and these seniors got their power from operating in the shadows where no adults could see them. At lunchtime, Maya positioned herself near the cafeteria entrance, where she could see everyone coming and going. She had asked Sarah to keep an eye on the bathrooms, and Mr. Patterson was discreetly monitoring the hallways. Marcus was sitting at a table in the center of the cafeteria, exactly where Maya had told him to be. At 12:15, Maya saw them coming, 5 seniors walking together with the confident swagger of people who thought they owned the school. The leader was a guy named Brett Collins, who looked like he spent most of his free time in the gym. The others followed behind him like a pack of wolves. Maya watched as they approached Marcus's table. She could see Marcus's shoulders tense up as they surrounded him. "Time's up, little man," Brett said loudly enough for several nearby tables to hear. "Where's our money?" Marcus looked around nervously, then his eyes found Maya. She gave him a small nod of encouragement. I don't have it," Marcus said, his voice shaking but audible. "What do you mean you don't have it?" Brett asked, leaning down close to Marcus's face. "We had a deal." Maya started walking toward their table, moving slowly and casually so she wouldn't attract attention too quickly. "I told my parents about what's been happening," Marcus said, his voice getting stronger. "They called the school." Brett's face turned red with anger. "You little snitch. We told you what would happen if you ratted us out." That was Maya's cue. She stepped up to the table, placing herself between Brett and Marcus. "Problem here?" Maya asked calmly. Brett looked up at her, and Maya could see recognition in his eyes. Word of her fight with Derek had spread throughout the school, and everyone knew who she was now. "This doesn't concern you," Brett said, but his voice lacked the confidence it had moments earlier. "Actually, it does," Maya replied. "See, Marcus here is under my protection now. That makes it very much my concern." The other 4 seniors exchanged glances. They had been expecting to intimidate a scared freshman, not deal with the girl who had taken down Derek's entire crew. "Your protection?" Brett laughed, but it sounded forced. "Who died and made you queen of the school?" Maya smiled that cold smile that was becoming her signature. "Nobody died, but somebody's about to get very embarrassed if this doesn't stop right now." By now, the confrontation had attracted the attention of most of the cafeteria. Students at nearby tables were watching and whispering. Some had their phones out, ready to record whatever happened next. "Look around, Brett," Maya said quietly. "You've got about 100 witnesses watching you try to shake down a freshman for lunch money. How do you think that's going to look on social media?" Brett glanced around and saw all the eyes on them. His confident expression started to waver. "Plus," Maya continued, "I'm pretty sure extortion is illegal. Something about demanding money through threats and intimidation. My uncle knows a few cops who might be interested in hearing about that." "This isn't over," Brett muttered, but he was already backing away from the table. "Yes, it is," Maya said firmly, "because here's what's going to happen. You and your friends are going to leave Marcus alone, permanently. You're not going to talk to him, look at him, or breathe in his direction. If I hear that any of you have so much as frowned at him, I'm going to make your lives very uncomfortable." "You can't threaten us," one of Brett's friends said, but his voice was uncertain. "I'm not threatening anyone," Maya replied. "I'm just explaining the consequences of your choices. See, I'm a peer counselor now. That means I have regular meetings with the principal, the school counselor, and the vice principal. I also happen to have a very good memory for faces and incidents." Brett was starting to understand that he had miscalculated. Maya wasn't just some tough girl who could throw a few punches. She had connections, backup, and most importantly, she had positioned this confrontation in a way that made him look like the bad guy in front of the entire school. "Fine," Brett said through gritted teeth. "We'll leave the kid alone." "Excellent," Maya said. "I'm glad we could work this out peacefully." Brett and his crew walked away, their heads down and their confidence shattered. Maya sat down next to Marcus, who was staring at her with amazement. "Is it really over?" Marcus asked. "It's over," Maya confirmed. "They're not going to bother you anymore. Guys like that are cowards at heart. They only pick on people who can't fight back." "Thank you," Marcus said, tears of relief in his eyes. "I don't know how I can ever repay you." Maya smiled gently. "You don't need to repay me. Just remember this feeling the next time you see someone else getting picked on. Maybe you'll be the one to step up and help them. That afternoon, Maya met with Principal Morrison and Mr. Patterson to debrief about the Marcus situation. "I have to say, I'm impressed with how you handled that," Principal Morrison said. "You managed to resolve the conflict without any violence and with minimal disruption to the school environment. Plus, you did it in a way that empowered Marcus instead of making him feel helpless," Mr. Patterson added. "That was really smart psychology." Maya felt proud of the praise, but she also knew that this was just the beginning. Word would spread that she was willing to stand up for students who couldn't protect themselves, and more people would come to her for help. Over the next month, Maya's reputation as a problem solver grew. She helped a sophomore girl deal with mean girls who were spreading rumors about her. She mediated a conflict between two former best friends who had fallen out over a boy. She even convinced a group of freshmen to stop vandalizing school property by helping them channel their energy into starting a legitimate art club. Each situation required a different approach. Sometimes it was a show of strength. Sometimes it was clever psychology, and sometimes it was just being a good listener. Uncle Tony's lessons about using her brain first proved invaluable. But Maya's biggest test came on a Friday afternoon in late October. She was walking to her car after school when she heard shouting coming from the student parking lot. A crowd of students had gathered in a circle, and Maya could hear the sounds of a fight. She pushed through the crowd and saw Derek Collins in the center, fighting with a junior named Alex Martinez. Derek looked different than he had a month ago. His clothes were wrinkled, his hair was messy, and he had dark circles under his eyes like he hadn't been sleeping well. Alex was on the ground, trying to protect his face while Derek kicked at him. Blood was coming from Alex's nose, and he looked dazed. "That's enough!" Maya shouted, stepping into the circle. Derek stopped kicking and turned to face her. His eyes were wild and unfocused, and Maya could smell alcohol on his breath even from several feet away. "Well, well," Derek slurred, "if it isn't the princess herself? Come to save another loser?" Maya looked at Alex, who was struggling to sit up. "Alex, you okay? Can you stand?" Alex nodded weakly and managed to get to his feet with help from another student. Maya was relieved to see that his injuries didn't look too serious. "Derek, you need to go home," Maya said calmly. "You're drunk and you're making a mistake you're going to regret." "Regret?" Derek laughed bitterly. "You want to talk about regret? My life has been hell since our little fight. My dad found out what happened, and he's been on my case every single day. My girlfriend broke up with me. Half the school thinks I'm a joke. And it's all because of you." Maya could see the pain and anger in Derek's eyes, and she felt a moment of sympathy for him. But that sympathy disappeared when she remembered the knife he had pulled on her. "Your problems aren't my fault, Derek," Maya said firmly. "You created this situation when you decided to be a bully. I just showed you that actions have consequences." "Consequences?" Derek screamed. "You ruined my life, and now I'm going to ruin yours!" Derek charged at Maya with all the fury of someone who had nothing left to lose. But he was drunk and sloppy, and Maya easily sidestepped his attack. Derek stumbled past her and crashed into a parked car. The crowd gasped as Derek slowly got to his feet. His lip was split from hitting the car, and he was bleeding. "Derek, stop this," Maya said. "You're embarrassing yourself in front of the whole school." But Derek was beyond reason. He pulled out the same knife he had threatened her with before, and several students in the crowd screamed. "I should have used this the first time," Derek said, waving the knife in front of him. "Maybe then people would still respect me." Maya's heart started racing, but she forced herself to stay calm. This was exactly the kind of situation Uncle Tony had prepared her for. "Put the knife down, Derek," Maya said in a steady voice. "This isn't going to end well for you." "Shut up," Derek shouted. "I'm tired of listening to you. I'm tired of you acting like you're better than everyone else." Derek lunged forward with the knife, aiming for Maya's chest. Maya stepped to the side and grabbed Derek's wrist, using the same technique Uncle Tony had taught her for disarming someone with a weapon. She twisted Derek's wrist sharply while pulling his arm across her body. Derek cried out in pain and dropped the knife, which clattered harmlessly to the pavement. But Maya wasn't finished. Derek had threatened her with a weapon twice now, and she had warned him that there would be consequences. She swept Derek's legs and sent him crashing to the ground hard. Derek tried to get up, but Maya placed her foot on his chest and pushed him back down. "Stay down," she said firmly. "This is over." Derek looked up at her with hate and fear in his eyes, but he didn't try to get up again. Maya looked around at the crowd of students and saw that several of them were recording the whole thing on their phones. "Someone call the police," Maya said. "And someone else call an ambulance for Alex." Within 10 minutes, the parking lot was full of police cars and emergency vehicles. Derek was arrested for assault with a deadly weapon, and Alex was taken to the hospital to be checked for a concussion. Maya found herself sitting in the back of a police car, not under arrest, but giving a statement to Officer Rodriguez, who happened to be Uncle Tony's cousin. "Sounds like you handled yourself pretty well," Officer Rodriguez said, after Maya finished her account of what happened. "Derek's in serious trouble this time. Pulling a knife on school property is a felony, especially with all those witnesses." "Is Alex going to be okay?" Maya asked. "He should be fine. Looks like Derek got in a few good hits before you stopped him, but nothing permanent." Uncle Tony arrived at the school as the police were finishing up their investigation. He talked briefly with Officer Rodriguez, then came over to Maya. "You okay?" he asked. Maya nodded. "I'm fine. Derek was drunk and angry. He blamed me for all his problems." Uncle Tony put his hand on Maya's shoulder. "Some people never learn to take responsibility for their own mistakes. Derek made his choices, and now he has to live with the consequences." "I feel bad for him," Maya said quietly. "His whole life is falling apart." "That's because you have a good heart," Uncle Tony replied. "But don't forget that Derek brought this on himself. You tried to resolve things peacefully the first time, and he pulled a knife on you. Today he attacked an innocent kid and then came after you with a weapon again. Some people can't be reasoned with." As they drove home, Maya thought about everything that had happened since she started at Jefferson High. She had come to the school just wanting to fit in and avoid trouble. Instead, she had become someone that other students looked to for protection and guidance. "Uncle Tony," Maya said as they pulled into their driveway, "do you think I'm doing the right thing, getting involved in all these situations?" Uncle Tony turned off the engine and looked at her seriously. "Maya, let me tell you something about your cousin Dom. He could have used his skills just to take care of himself and his immediate family, but he chose to use his strength to protect people who couldn't protect themselves. That's what makes someone a real leader. But I'm just a high school student." "Leaders aren't defined by their age or their title," Uncle Tony said. "They're defined by their willingness to stand up for what's right, even when it's difficult or dangerous." Maya smiled. "So you think I should keep being a peer counselor?" "I think you should keep being exactly who you are. The world needs more people like you." The following Monday, Maya returned to school to find that everything had changed again. Derek's arrest had made the local news, and the whole story had come out about his history of bullying and his 2 attacks on Maya. Students who had never spoken to her before were coming up to thank her for standing up to Derek. Teachers were treating her with a new level of respect. Even some of the seniors who had been causing problems were keeping a low profile. During lunch, Maya sat with her usual group of friends, including Marcus Thompson, who had become much more confident since the incident with Brett Collins. "So, what's next?" Sarah asked. "You've basically eliminated bullying from Jefferson High single-handedly." Maya laughed. "I doubt that. There will always be people who try to push others around. The key is making sure there are people willing to push back." "Speaking of which," Marcus said, "there's a new kid starting next week. Tommy Chen from Roosevelt Elementary. He's the kid you helped on the playground a few months ago. Maya smiled, remembering the little boy who had been getting picked on by the older kids. I was thinking, Marcus continued, maybe we should make sure he feels welcome. Let him know that Jefferson High isn't like other schools. Maya looked around the table at her friends. Marcus had gone from being a scared victim to someone who wanted to protect others. Sarah had started volunteering to help younger students with their homework. Even Alex Martinez, who was back at school with just a few bruises, had joined their informal group. I think that's a great idea, Maya said. But remember, we can't solve everyone's problems for them. Sometimes the best thing we can do is show people that they're not alone. That afternoon, Maya met with Principal Morrison for their weekly check-in. I have to ask, Principal Morrison said, how do you feel about what happened with Derek? Any regrets about how you handled things? Maya thought about it carefully. I wish Derek could have learned to change his behavior without having to go through all this. But I don't regret defending myself or protecting Alex. Derek made his choices. The school board is very impressed with the peer counselor program, Principal Morrison said. They're thinking about expanding it to other schools in the district. They'd like you to help train other students. Maya felt a surge of pride. I'd like that, but I think it's important that each school develops its own approach. What works here might not work somewhere else. Wise thinking. That's exactly the kind of insight that makes you so effective. As Maya walked home from school that day, she reflected on how much her life had changed. 6 months ago, she had been a military kid who moved around constantly and never stayed anywhere long enough to make real friends. Now she had a place where she belonged and people who counted on her. She thought about her parents and wondered what they would think of who she had become. Her father was serving overseas, protecting people he had never met because it was the right thing to do. Her mother had always taught her to stand up for people who couldn't stand up for themselves. Maya realized that she was following in their footsteps, just in a different way. When she got home, Uncle Tony was working on a classic Mustang in the garage. Maya grabbed a wrench and started helping him, the way she had been doing since she moved in with him. How was school? Uncle Tony asked. Good, Maya said. Principal Morrison wants me to help start peer counselor programs at other schools. Uncle Tony smiled. Sounds like you're making quite an impact. Uncle Tony, can I ask you something? Shoot. Do you think my cousin Dom would be proud of what I'm doing? Uncle Tony stopped working and looked at her seriously. Maya, your cousin Dom has spent his whole life fighting for family. But you know what you're doing? You're making family out of strangers. You're taking kids who feel alone and scared and showing them that someone cares about them. That's something even Dom hasn't figured out how to do. Maya felt tears forming in her eyes. Really? Really. You're not just tough, Maya. You're wise. And that combination is going to take you places your old uncle can't even imagine. As they continued working on the car together, Maya thought about the future. She still had 2.5 years of high school left, but she knew now that she had found her calling. Whether it was as a peer counselor, a teacher, a social worker, or something else entirely, she wanted to spend her life helping people who couldn't help themselves. Uncle Tony had taught her to be strong. Her family's reputation had given her confidence. But Maya had discovered something that was all her own. The ability to see potential in people that others had given up on. Derek Collins was in juvenile detention, facing serious charges. But even he might get a second chance someday, and Maya hoped he would learn to use it wisely. Brett and his crew had learned that picking on younger students wasn't worth the trouble it would bring them. Marcus Thompson was no longer afraid to walk the halls of his own school. And Tommy Chen would start high school next year, knowing that there were people looking out for him. Maya Rodriguez had found her place in the world, and it was exactly where she was supposed to be, standing between the strong and the weak, making sure everyone got a fair chance. As Uncle Tony always said, family wasn't just about blood. Sometimes family was whoever needed protecting, and Maya had made Jefferson High School her family.